I made $150,000 this year using one simple indicator. And I was so consistent because it finds options right before they take off. It also allowed me to grow multiple small accounts from scratch. And in this video, I'm going to show you real examples of how to use this indicator so you can do the same. Okay, so what you want to do is head over to the indicators tab. And what I'm doing is I'm actually on TradingView right now. You don't have to use TradingView. A lot of other platforms have this. But I like to use TradingView. It's a free charting platform. And so once you're on, what you want to do is type in true range. Now, typically, there's only going to be one that's actually built inside of TradingView called average true range. That is not the one you want to use, okay? You're going to see right here in the community, there's actually a bunch of these. Now, I don't really know any of these people. I don't know who made any of this. All I know is that the first one at the top here, and it may not be the first for you, so you may have to search for it, but by this one, SBR77727, whoever that is, he made a great indicator. You go ahead and click that, and it's going to plot the true range on your chart like so, okay? Now, the cool thing about true range, and basically what this is all it does is take the high and the low of a candle and take the difference. And that's exactly what's going to plot here, right? So if we go ahead and look at this day, and we're on a daily chart right now on Boeing. So if you look at this day, you can see the high, if you look all the way here at the top, the high was 225.70 and the low was 215.9. So it's about a 10-point range, right? If you subtract 225 to 215, it's about 10 points. You can see right here, if we look here on the right, it says 9.68 on this little bar here, okay? So pretty close, right? And it's basically exactly, it's going to be accurate, right? I was off by a few cents. But you get the idea. So all it does is plot the exact high to low of every single day. Now you may be wondering, how the hell does that help me trade? And how does it actually make me money? Well, I'm going to show you in the next few minutes here. But the first thing you need to do is get this indicator, plot it on your chart, and just get familiar with it. You can kind of see exactly some days we have some crazy spikes here, 16-point range. This was a crazy day, right? We had a 23-point range. And the cool thing is if you go to a weekly chart, it's going to adjust to your actual time frame. So on here, you can see on the weekly chart, we typically have around 10, 11-point ranges. If we go to an hour chart, you can see typicals are 1, 2-point ranges every single hour. So you kind of get the idea. Now, how do we actually trade this strategy? How did I use the options market as well to profit off these moves? So here's what I would do. Now, you can do this on a weekly or a monthly chart, and all these trades I took were 1 day, 2 day trades, but you have to start on the weekly or the monthly chart depending on which one you're going to do. So we're going to start with the weekly chart, for example, okay? Now, what you want to do is kind of get a baseline, and you can kind of make this a little bit higher if you want, of how average true range typically works and what the typical true range kind of bars are every single week in Boeing. And you don't want to go too far out because the stock is always changing. Stocks are always moving, right? If it's at $100 versus $300, the range is going to be higher at $300. So you want to keep that in mind. But what I can do is look at the past few months or so, right? Or the past year or so, really, and say, okay, on a given week, how much can I expect Boeing to move, right? And it's never going to be perfect, but on a given week, and you can say, okay, well, we kind of have two different variations here. You can see kind of right here. We see a lot of time we get these spikes up to this 15 kind of price point range. So here. We get a few areas where we kind of get that 15. The most accurate one or main one I see is kind of closer to here, down at 11 points. You can see you got a lot of bars, get to that 11, 12 point range. And then the lowest one I see is right around here. Kind of the minimum we really get is about 7 points, right? Maybe we could put it a little bit higher to 7.5, 8 points. But this is typically what we see almost every single week, right? And you can put in the absolute max or minimum if you want to at 5 points right here. But typically we always get around a 7-point range every single week, okay? This is why it's extremely important. So now that we have this information, what you can do is kind of play it based off time, right? So today as I'm filming this, it's Friday. And so on a week, every single week ends at Friday, right? And so essentially how the strategy works is you want to see, okay, what range are we at right now? And you could do this on a Thursday or a Friday. And what range do we typically get to, right? So let's say, for example, that Boeing right now was only at, a 2.5-point range. And today is Thursday or Friday, right? Well, historically, Boeing every single week always gets to be a 7 to 10-point range. So what we can do is take a trade expecting that Boeing is going to hit its average true range. Now, right now, as I'm making this, you can see Boeing is about 7-point range. Now, this is typically the minimum. We've kind of seen this hit a few times, as you can see from the levels here. So there may not be a trade opportunity here. But let's just say, for example purposes, that or 11 points was actually the minimum, right? And we didn't really have many weeks below 11 points, right? Because no strategy is 100%. We're always looking at how we can increase our edge and our probability as a trader. So let's say it was at 11 points, okay? And Boeing has hit 11-point ranges quite a few times throughout the past year. So knowing that information, I can go back to my chart and say, okay, right now we're at a 7-point range, right? And obviously we can only increase the range by going up or by going down, right? There's no other way to really increase that range. And so you can see that based on the chart now, today's Friday, so today the range ends, right? And so what you can do is kind of do two things. You can expect that, hey, you can pick a direction and say, I believe price is going to go down. Or you can play a neutral strategy, which I'll show you in the options market here in a second, of kind of what to do with that. So let's say, for example, that we believe price is going to go down, right? And we believe that because price is very close to the bottom of that range, right, on this weekly candle. And so the odds of price going all the way back up here and then going more points above it is extremely low. So we believe price is going to go lower and fill that range. Because right now we're at 7 points. Typically, Boeing gets to 11-point ranges. You can do the math. That's a 4-point difference, okay? So we can expect this weekly candle to have an additional 4 points by the end of today, right? And the reason that's so valuable is because with options, you have to be correct in not just direction, but also in time. And because you're doing it based off weekly ranges, and you can say today's Wednesday, today's Thursday, today's Friday, by the end of this week, price should hit this range. And so we know that we're at 7 points, and typically Boeing gets to 11 points, we can expect a 4-point move. So if we go from my low here, 4 points lower, which would be right about here, that would put us at about 202. And I can draw on a line right there, right around that 202 mark, okay? So now we say, okay, price is currently at 212. Boeing typically sees ranges of 11-point weeks. We can expect Boeing by the end of this week to get down to 202. And then what you can do is go to your options chain, right? You can type in Boeing, just like this. You can say, okay. And again, this is kind of not the best example because Boeing can have a lot of 7-point ranges, and we're at that 7-point range. But again, let's just say it was 11, and so we expect price to get down to 202. We can go to our option and say, okay, by Friday, which is today, we expect that price could get to about this 202 level. And right now, these are at like 5 cents, 6 cents. And if these get in the money, they're going to be worth around $1, right? So that's what is that, 200% or 20x, 2,000% gain. Right? Now, is that realistic with the example I'm giving you right now? Not necessarily. But let me show you another example that's probably a little bit more realistic. It's going to be Chewy. And this one's actually going to be on a monthly time frame. Because if you look right here on the weekly time frame, you can kind of see, again, how we kind of hit our typical week at like 3 points already. So there's not much that this is going to move any lower. Let's go over to a monthly chart and say, as I'm filming this right now, it's the 17th. So we're a little bit more than halfway through the month, right? Now, on the monthly chart on Chewy, you can look at the ranges here. You can see right now this month is a little bit lower than typically what we've seen, right? Now, back in the day, we did have a few months right around here that were around that 3-point range. But for the most part, a lot of the months get up towards like this 6-point range, maybe towards this like 8 or 9-point range, right? And so that's typical of what we've seen from Chewy on a monthly basis in the past. So what can we do with this information? Well, we know that if we're currently at 3 points or 3.5 points, it typically gets to about 7 points. We can expect a 4-point move by the end of the month, okay? And so what I can actually do is go to my daily chart here. I'm just going to draw out when the end of the month is, okay? So I'm going to put in a vertical line, October 31st right there. And then I'm going to go back to the monthly chart, and we're going to say, actually, I'm going to get rid of that for a second so I can see the candles. But, okay, we have our high here at 40.51. In fact, I'm going to actually just draw these out like so. And then our low here is at 36.62. And again, we're at 3.5 points right now. We want to get to 7. So we'll call it another 3.5, 4-ish points for our expected move to happen. So what we can do is say, okay, 3.5, 4 points from this lower. We'll just go 3.5, make it easy. It's going to be right here. I'll draw in another level. Go ahead and make this black. And then on the upside, same thing, 3.5 points from the upside. Let me go ahead and see where that's going to be. All the way up here, and boom. I realized I just did percentage points. That's why this one's a lot lower. Let me fix that real quick. 3.5 points right there, and then boom, 3.5 points here. Okay, there we go. Draw that in. Perfect. So let me get rid of this. You can kind of see exactly the math I did. Say, okay, this is the current range, right, from these green bars. We expect by the end of the month to be at either this range or either this range, right? And not both. We're not expecting to move all the way this high, all the way this low, but one direction from what we've done so far. So now I can go back to the daily chart, right? I can go ahead and go back and find this in by the 1031, or sorry, end of October, right there. So boom, there we go. And let me go ahead and make this a little bit lower, clean things up a bit. There we go, perfect. So now, by this day, end of October, we believe that Chewy can make a range either down to this one at 33 or up to here at 44. Now, that's a lot of valuable information, right? That's an extremely valuable information. So what we can do is we can pull up the chart here on Chewy, right, on our options chain. And we can say, okay, by October 31st, by the end of the month, our expected monthly range is either going to be down at 33 or 44. So if I go by the end of the month, which would be right here, 33. Right now, these options, I mean, the spreads are crazy, so I wouldn't actually recommend trading these spreads, but probably get filled around $68 here, right? Or the 44 calls are about $75 here, right? So we can risk $75. We can risk $33. And if you're playing a little bit smarter, you may want to get closer to in the money, so maybe 1 point in the money. It looks like you can actually get filled for cheaper if you get it closer than the money, which is rare. So even like down here, the 35 puts you can get for 38 cents. Now, if you get this and we end up going 3 points in the money, that's going to be worth $3 or $300 a contract. And right now, you can get these at 38 cents, $38. That is a 10x play. If Chewy, all it has to do is hit its typical monthly range, which is not out of the ordinary, right? It's not crazy, right? Because typically, we've seen it get to 7, 8. I mean, sometimes it gets closer to like 13, 15 point ranges way back here, right? So it's nothing out of the ordinary for a move like this to happen. And if we can get at the 35, what was it, the 35 puts for $3, we get, sorry, it's a $2 difference. So we get the 33, right? These are going to be worth $2. We buy them for 38. If we do some quick math here, right? We make, what is it, $200 divided by 38, or 38, 200 divided by 38. We're going to make a 500% return simply by using this strategy. And again, you don't have to necessarily be right on direction. Now, I believe that, Chewy may go lower because we're already down quite a bit. We're pretty close to the bottom of that monthly range. But, you can also say, hey, I think this may go all the way up to 44 or may go down to 33. You can get both these options, right? So you can get the 35. Instead of the 44, you can go up 2 points. You can get the 42. This whole trade, right, if we do the quick analysis, is going to cost you, what, $59. And as long as price goes above 34, or sorry, below 34 or above 42, you have an opportunity to make profit on this, okay? And again, simply going off historical and average range, and you don't need any crazy numbers. You can kind of just eyeball it like this. If we go back to the monthly chart, you can kind of just eyeball it, see what monthly ranges you would typically get. You can kind of expect a move to happen by a certain time frame. And when you're using options, that is the most valuable tool you can have. Is not only being being right on direction, but being right on time, because that is the most important tool when it comes to catching these massive plays. And you can do this across all time frames. You can do it on a daily chart. You can do it on a 15-minute chart, right? Even if you look at Chewy on today, if we kind of zoom in here, right, we typically hit our daily range. And like typically we'll see ranges of Chewy up to like $1.50, 80 cents. So even on a, 0 DTE metric, or even if we're looking at SPY, for example, SPY's been a lot more volatile the past recently. But let's say typically we see about a 3.7, 4 point range, and we're only at 1 point on the day. Well, you can expect another 3 points to happen by the end of the day. You can trade 0 DTE options on that. You can get a little creative with your trading, and that's essentially the strategy and tool that I used to grow these small accounts and make a lot of profit. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Leave a like and subscribe down below. Please, I'm putting out new videos every single week here on this channel, going over everything I've learned over the past 8 years as a trader. And with that being said, I'll see you all in the next video.